Hilchos Tumas Tzaraas Perek Chamishi, the laws of impurity imparted by Tzaraas, chapter 5. This is a new section in these laws. We're still talking about Tzaraas of the skin, but while the first 4 chapters were dealing with basic Tzaraas on the skin, a regular white spot on regular healthy skin, today we're going to be talking about 2 special types of Tzaraas on the skin. The first one is called shchin or michva, a boil and a burn, and that's where basically skin becomes peeled away because of an injury, and now you're dealing with Tzaraas on this area, what qualifies as Tzaraas on these burns. And also at the end of the chapter we're going to have baldness, unnatural baldness on the head, what laws dictate Tzaraas that appear then on those bald places. Truth is that shchin and michva already came up in previous chapters in passing as part of the laws showing that regular skin and shchin and michva cannot combine in terms of Tzaraas. But today we're going to actually get the laws related to Tzaraas that appears on these boils or these burns. First, the Rambam defines the terms shchin and michva. Halacha Aleph. Misha hoisalei maka ba'er b'sarei. If somebody had an injury on the skin of his flesh, v'nifshat ha'er machmas hamaka, and the skin, nifshat means peeled away. It peeled away because of the injury. So what was the cause of the injury, says the Rambam? Im hoisa hamaka machmas ha'eish, if the injury came because of fire or any fire-related substances. For example, the skin got burnt through a glowing coal. Or because of hot ash. Or with hot iron or stone that was heated by fire. And anything like it, the commentaries say these words include hot water. These are called michva. Michva means a burn, specifically a burn from fire-related substances. What if the injury came not because of a fire-related substance? Maybe a person got an injury through a stone or through wood, not hot, just simply a stone hit him or wood hit him, or things like that. Or some say the word maka. Or the injury came because of a bodily sickness, like dry blisters or blisters filled with pus. Which caused the skin to become disintegrated and peeled away. Or 3 types of fevers. These 3 terms appear in the Torah, in Parshas Kisaveh, in the Teichacha, the part of the rebuke. So I have the Art Scroll Chumash over here. They translate shachefes, kadachas, and dalekes as wasting away. That's shachefes. Rashi says, besari nishchaf, your flesh wears away and becomes swollen. Kadachas is fever, as we say in Ha'azinu, ki eish kadcha be'api, fire burns in my nostrils. Rashi says it's the fire of those who are ill, which is very hot. And dalekes, fiery fever, that's how they translate it, it's even hotter than kadachas. Bottom line, there was some kind of a fever which caused the skin to waste away, but it was not from a fire-related thing. Or anything like that, which caused the skin to become destroyed. Commentaries say would refer to naturally hot lead. Naturally hot lead could impose a burn. So all of these things that don't come from fire, that's called shchin. Okay, the way I made it in color, we're going to use the orange as the shchin, orange outside, and the brownish outside is more of a burn, a deeper burn from fire. That's going to be our michva. Okay? Now, before we get to the laws, the Rambam defines some doubtful cases. Libein shfud v'hikaboy. What if somebody heated up a spit till it was white hot, and then he hit somebody with the edge of the spit? So the commentaries say, basically it means like this. You have a long spit, and the point is what made the injury. The point contacted the skin, and now there's an injury on the skin. So we have to ascertain, what is this? Because on the one hand, you can say the injury came simply from the impact. That's called chavata in the commentaries. In that case, it's a shchin. It's not a burn. But it could be that because it's white hot, it also imposed a burn. And then it's an issue of michva. And as we're going to see, it's important to define what's shchin and what's michva because they don't combine. So the Rambam says you have to examine the spit. Im hoya reishei mevoiraz, that's what some Rambams have. If the edge was thick, that's what mevoiraz means. Or some Rambams have the word kadur, if it was a ball. Harezu michva. That classifies as a burn. Because even if there's impact, the burn that comes after the impact cancels out the effect of the impact, and it's simply left as a fiery burn. But if it was a pointed edge, now we don't know what comes first and what stays permanently, whether it's the impact or the burn. It's a doubt whether we're going to classify this as michva or shchin, and that's going to cause doubts if any tzaraas develops on that. Laka b'mei tvaria. If a person got injured through the hot springs of Tiberias, or with olive dregs, which when accumulated could become hottish, and they imposed an injury, these classify as shchin. They're not fire related. They're not a michvah. They're shchin. Halacha gimel. Another thing we have to establish before we get into the shchin and michvah. Hashchin v'hamichvah. These injuries caused either again by non-fire related or fire related things. Kol zman shehin triyos, shehin makos triyos. So long as they're fresh wounds, hein nikrayin murdin. Halacha calls them murdin. Murdin means rebellious, because as the Rambam explains elsewhere, they're when you touch them, they retreat. It's a fresh wound. It rebels in response to touch, so to speak. Point is, it's still very fresh. So that's called murdin. Ve'enan mitamim b'negoyim klal. And murdin level stuff don't have any impurity related to tzaraas whatsoever. All the stuff we're going to talk about today with shchin and michvah tzaraas don't apply in the early stage of the wound when it's still fresh. Chayu hashchin v'hamichvah v'nisrapu ripui gamor. On the other edge of the spectrum, once the shchin and the michvah heal completely, a total healing, afal pisha hamakim tzalekes, even if the place has a scar, the eino doima l'shar ha'er, and therefore doesn't look like the rest of the skin, it doesn't matter. Once it's fully healed, they classify as regular skin of the flesh for all matters, which means they become impure with 3 signs of impurity: white hairs, healthy skin, and spreading, as we learned in the last 3 chapters. They have a maximum quarantine time of 2 weeks. If a lesion on that area doesn't have any signs of impurity develop, you go till 2 weeks and that's it. In other words, they're called regular flesh. So if they're fresh, they're not shchin and michvah. If they're fully healed, they're not shchin and michvah. So when are they called shchin and michvah? Says the Rambam, hischilu hashchin v'hamichvah, lichies uli hisrapais, when these burns or these injuries begin to heal, and they begin to be restored. V'nases alei and klipa keklipas hashum, and the initial scab develops, just the thin size of a garlic peel. Zuhi tzareves hashchin ha'amura b'Torah, u'michyas hamichvah ha'amura sham. This is the reference of tzareves hashchin, a scarred shchin, or michyas hamichvah, the beginning of the healing of a burn. That's the one Torah is talking about. And that's the one that has the special laws of shchin and michvah, which are, in short, umetames b'shnei simanim. Number 1, the signs of impurity are only 2, b'seir lavan oy b'pisyain, white hairs or spreading. They don't have the law of healthy skin. Ve'ein bo'en hesger el shavua echad. And the maximum quarantine time is only 1 week, not 2. After 1 week, if no signs develop, you go home. As the Rambam describes right now, Ketzad, what does this mean? Let us assume that there is a baheres, a square lesion that develops inside an area of a burn. Whether it's a burn that's from fire related or not fire related. If there's white hair, sign of impurity, yachlit, that's it, totally impure. If there's no white hair, it's an empty spot. So then, Yasgir Shavua Echad, B'yira B'Seif HaShavua. You put him in quarantine for a week, and you check at the end of the week. If either it grew white hairs, or it spread, and it got bigger, Yachlit, at this point, you're decidedly impure. There's a sign of impurity. But if nothing came after a week, Yiftar, that's it, you're exempted. Now, of course, like in the regular skin case, if after being exempted, the guy wakes up one day and he sees that it's spread, or that there's white hairs, yachlit, you go back to the Kohen, and he declares you decidedly impure. By the way, what is the reason why there's no michya? Why is healthy skin not a sign? Because the Torah uses the terminology, umichias basar chai, bas es. A healthy skin has to appear in the lesion. Of course, when you're dealing with shchin, there is no healthy skin. Where's healthy skin going to appear? Therefore, it doesn't contribute to the impurity. Halacha hey, hashchin v'hamichva ein mitztarfin zeim zeh. Shchin and michva, if there's 2 types of burns right next to each other. One comes from a non-fire related substance, one comes from a fire related substance, they don't combine with each other. Leficha chilkan akasav. That's exactly why Torah makes 2 passages out of them. Even though all the laws are the same, Torah repeats the laws twice, one for shchin, one for michva. Why? Loimar she'ein mitztarfin zeim zeh, to teach us that they don't combine with one another. And therefore, ve'ein poisin zelozeh, spreading from one to the other is not called spreading. Ve'ein poisin la'ir habasar, spreading from them to regular skin is not called spreading. V'lei baheres ir habasar poisin l'seichan, and spreading from a regular skin tzaraas into them is not called spreading either. As the Rambam gives an example, Ketel, what does this look like? Haya shchin b'tzad hamichva. Let's say there was a shchin and a michva right next to each other. Ubaheres kigris bishtehen. And a baheres that comprises fully the size of 6 by 6 hairs, but it's crossing both of them. It's not in either one alone. Hareza Torah, that's pure, because there's no full gris in either one. And the fact that in two of them together, it makes a gris, doesn't combine. What if the baheres was only in one of them? You see, the full gris is inside here, the michvah in this case. And then it spreads into the second one. So the spreading exclusively happened in the second area. Or it spread to the healthy skin area after being quarantined. Tahar, this is pure, because the spreading is not considered to be a halachically significant spreading. Same thing if you have a baheres on the regular skin, and the baheres spread into one of them. And it's not called the spreading. Instead, what do? Because it's a regular Tzaraas on the skin, you put it for a second week of quarantine, or if it's after the second week, you simply send them home. Now, the Rambam says an interesting law that applies to this shchin concept. Let's imagine a person has inside the palm of his hand a shchin that's exactly the size of a gris, 6 by 6 hairs. Uba baheres kigris. And watch what happens. Literally in the space occupied by the shchin, a baheres develops. A white spot develops over exactly the perimeter of the shchin. So think about this now. What's the only way for tzaraas in a shchin to become impure? If hair grows or if it spreads. Hair can't grow in the palm of your hand. Hair doesn't grow here. And where's it going to spread to? The only place it has to spread to is other skin, regular skin. We don't say that spreading from shchin to regular skin is called the spreading. So one might think that this should be totally exempted. Says the Rambam Yossi, no, you have to put it in quarantine. Because even though it cannot happen, the regular signs can't develop here. It's not fit to have white hairs or to spread. But you know what might happen during quarantine? Maybe he'll get another injury. Shchin of the same type, not the other type, same type of injury. And then it will spread into the neighboring shchin, which will be a qualifying spreading, which will make it impure. So you got to put it in quarantine just in case that happens. Halacha vav. Shchin shenasa michva. What if shchin becomes a michva? Okay, so you have either one or the other. Okay, you have first a non-fire related substance, and then it becomes a burn. In other words, a burn gets superimposed on it. Or you have a burn and then a non-fire injury gets superimposed on it. Bitla michva es hashchin. The burn overrides the shchin. If a burn becomes superimposed by a non-fire related substance burn, then the shchin overrides the michva. And basically the law now applies as the superimposed injury. If you don't know whether it was a shchin or a michva, there's no issue. Because there's only the same sign and the same impurity applied to both of them. The Torah doesn't divide them except for teaching us that they don't combine. But if you have one injury and you're not sure of the source, it doesn't matter. As long as it's either a shchin or a michva, it's going to be treated as such. Now, why is the Rambam saying that there's no ramifications at all? We just had the case of the palm of the hand. Yeah, if next to it comes a new area, so we have to know if it's a shchin or a michva to know if they combined. That's true, says the commentaries, but the Rambam is talking about the essential nega itself. This shchin, this michva, insofar as it's concerned, we don't care what its status is, if it's a shchin or a michva. Halacha zayin, hisgidei bebaheres shebishchin. A person comes to the Kohen with a baheres on shchin. So there's a non-fire burn over here with a spot on it. The Kohen puts him into quarantine. Ubeseif hashavua nasa eira basar. At the end of the week, the shchin completely goes away, and now it's regular skin, which is a big difference, because on regular skin, a baheres can be quarantined for another week. Or it began like this, tzaraas on regular skin, ubeseif hashavua nasa shchin, and at the end of the week, it becomes a shchin. There's a burn develops under it. Yiroa katchila, or yiroa batchila. You have to examine it as if it's from new, which actually goes kind of in his favor both ways. Because if it ended up as a shchin, you're starting again and you're getting a whole fresh week. Certainly if it ended up in a healthy skin, you're getting 2 weeks of potential quarantine till you become pure. I say it works in his favor. No, it doesn't work in his favor. It puts him in quarantine again. Excuse me. Halacha ches. So that concludes all the laws related to shchin and michvah. Now we go to the other category of tzaraas on unusual skin. This is called the unnatural baldness. Misha nashar kol sa'ar reisha. If somebody lost all the hair on his head, bein machmas chayli, whether because of a sickness, bein machmas maka, whether because of a wound, she'eino re'uya legadol seir, which the wound cannot have hair growing through it, bein sha'achal dvarim hamashirin esaseir, or maybe he ate some things which have the hair fall off, or sach dvarim she'ishtiru sarei, or he put on some lotions that caused the hair to fall off. Afal pisha roi legadol la'achar zman, even if the hair might return later, it could regrow. Hayil v'ibed kol sa'ar reisha ata, since right now he lost all the hair on his head, hareza nikra kereach oy gibeach. He's going to be called what the Torah calls kereach or gibeach. These are two terms for baldness, which the Rambam will define in a second. Im noshar sa'arei min hakod kadu lemata, if the hair fell off from the midpoint of the skull, going downwards, sheifeya le'ocher, backwards, va'ad pika shel tzavar, till the bone or the joint by the neck, in other words, from the midpoint of the skull, he lost the hair till here, nikra kereach, that's called kereach, back baldness. V'im noshar min hakod kadu lemata, but if he lost the hair from the midpoint of the skull and downwards, going the other way, shefeya lefanav ad keneged padachtai, going downwards till his forehead, nikra gibeach, this is called gibeach. Unnatural baldness in the front is gabachas, unnatural baldness in the back is karachas. Halacha tes, this area of the skin has special laws. Hakarachas v'hagabachas mitames b'shnei simanim. This frontal and back baldness can become impure if a lesion appears in it, with two signs of impurity. B'michya u'bepisyon, healthy skin and spreading. Not white hairs because there's no hairs. V'yeshba and hesger shnei shavuos, and like regular skin, they have a maximum quarantine of 2 weeks. Shenemar bohen, because it says by them, kemare tzaraas ur basar. Here, like the appearance of tzaraas on skin of the flesh. So since Torah somewhat compares it to regular skin, so we apply the laws of regular skin. Just that ulefisha ein bahen seir, because they have no hair, ein aser halav on siman tuma bahen. We can't call white hair being a source of impurity for them because there just typically isn't hair over there. And even if it does appear, as the commentaries say, it doesn't serve as a sign of impurity. The ketzad mitamin b'shnei simanon b'shnei shavuos. What does it mean that they can become impure with these two types of signs and in 2 weeks? Sheim hoisa b'heres b'karachtai b'gabachtai. If a person gets a lesion on the frontal baldness or the back baldness, and there was a healthy skin inside of it, Yachlit, the Kohen should declare it impure. If there was no healthy skin, Yasgir, you put it into quarantine, and you have to wait till the end of the week. The Yireh b'seif hashavua, see it and the week what happened. If healthy skin came or it spread, Yachlit, you put it into total impurity. If nothing happened after a week, like regular skin, Yasgir shavua sheni, you go for a second week of quarantine. Pasas, if at this point, after 2 weeks, it spread or got a healthy skin, Yachlit, you go totally impure. If there's still nothing, Yiftar, you exempt him, like with regular tzaraas of the skin. And like the skin as well, if after being exempted, it came back a spreading or a healthy area of skin inside the lesion, Yachlit, of course, the Kohen declares him to be impure. Halacha Yud, like when it came to Shchin and Michvah, Hakarachas v'Hagabachas einan mitzarfei zu im zu. Frontal baldness and back baldness don't combine. Meaning, let's say a person actually lost all of his hair, front and back, and there's a lesion crossing both areas. They don't combine. Shenemar, because it says, B'karachtoi oi b'gabachtoi, on his frontal baldness or on his back baldness. Torah uses the word or to divide them, twice actually. Milame, this teaches us shehein shtayim. There are two different types of baldness. Frontal baldness is one category, back baldness is a separate category. The ein poises mizulazu, they can't spread from one to the other. If you have one at the border of the back baldness and it spreads to the front baldness, it's not a spreading. Nor to any other skin of the flesh. Let's say you have a lesion right over here at the forehead and it spreads into the forehead. It's not called spreading. Nor can a regular baharas on the skin spread into the area of unnatural frontal or back baldness. Halacha Yud Aleph, Hakarachas Hagabachas. This front or back baldness, or the truth is even a beard, which became completely bald. Someone lost all the hair on his beard. What if a burn appeared on them? Either the non-fiery burn or the fiery burn. Now they transition. They're no longer areas of baldness. Now they're treated like shchin and michvah that would appear in regular skin. A head or a beard that became bald becomes like regular skin. with the exception that they don't become impure with white hair. The simple reading is that the Rambam is saying this final line even in the case of Shchin and Michvah. That even when it's Shchin and Michvah, they retain the status of skin only insofar as regular laws are concerned, not Seir Lavan. There is one commentary that says that no, once it turns into a Shchin, it actually could be Metame with Seir Lavan if white hairs appear there. Now, says the Rambam, Hareish v'hazakon koidem sheyitzmach bahen aser. What if you have the head or the beard before hair ever grew in them? Ba'adayin lehelu seir me'ilam, they never produced hair ever. V'chena dildulin shebareish v'sebazakon, or if you have things hanging off the head or the beard area, hareihin ka'ir habasar, they're like fully regular skin. Umistamin b'shleisha simanin u'shnei shavuos. At this point, it's a bald baby. Doesn't have any hair ever, so it wasn't the baldness. He didn't lose hair. It's like regular skin. So he's got all three potential signs of impurity: healthy skin spreading and white hairs, u'shnei shavuos, and 2 weeks of maximum quarantine. V'chein zekano isha v'hasaris ad shalei halusei are also the beard area of a woman or an impotent man before they grow hair. Hareihin ka'ir habasar, they're also treated like regular skin. V'im halusei, once they produce hair, if they do, hareihin kiskano ish, now they're judged like a man's beard. Shemistame b'nisakin k'mei yizbar, which could only achieve impurity like with a nesek, which is a whole other type of category of lesion discussed in chapter 8, the Einei Mistami b'Baheres, and not with regular lesions on the skin. That's unique for the beard area, the nesek, and also the head area if there's not unnatural baldness. The karachas and the gabachas, which we discussed today, that's unnatural baldness. If there's natural baldness, there's a whole other set of lesions that's called nesakin, which are going to be explained in later chapters.